Welcome back to another episode of the Panther Pod. Today we are here with Zach Lipfield and Brady Fisher, who just won the Panther Cage. Is that right?
That's correct.
Why don't you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we launched an app here at Chapman University about a month ago at this point, and Chapman hosts like a Shark Tank style event called Panther Cage Match, and we were of one of 6 student groups. Not just Chapman students, but any sort of students, could be high school or just at nearby colleges, to pitch to a board of investors and VCs and mentors, things like that, who are well established in the industry. And we pitched to them. We had 3 minutes to pitch, 5 minutes for questions. And upon conclusion of all the pitches, the judges met and determined that we were the winners of that competition. So it was super exciting for us, a big step in our business.
Well, congratulations, you guys. Why don't you tell me a little bit about your app?
Yeah, so Relate is a social media app for rating movies and TV shows. And so the idea stems from the fact that you're friends with people because you have similar interests. You tend to like the same things. And so that translates to media as well. And so we wanted to build a platform that provides an outlet for friends to share what they're watching. You follow your friends and people that you trust and see what they're watching, what they like, what they don't like, whether that's a movie or show or, and so forth.
Sweet. And would you tell me what both of you guys do in the company?
Yeah, so I'm the CEO and founder, and I handle a lot of the development stuff. So everything from coding the app, building it out, things like that. The engineering essentially is what I handle. And Zach helps out with more of the business side of things.
Yeah, I'm the business development lead for Relate, and I helped kind of form a beta group before we went live, and I also help kind of just do in-person selling on campus since Chapman's our main test group at the moment.
Cool. Would you tell me how you guys met each other and how this came to fruition?
Do you want to take that one?
Sure, I'll take it. We were like friends freshman year. We both lived in Henley Hall. Great place. Visited quite a bit. And he lived on like the 4th floor, and I was rushing API at the time, and he was already in the chapter. And I don't know, we would just like hang out and, sometimes we played Chell, whatever. And he was always talking, he's like, yo, I'm like building this app. If you want me to tell you about it, like, please sign this NDA. And I'm like, okay, like whatever, sign it. So I signed an NDA and he shows me it and I'm like, dude, this is like really cool. And, kind of just said like the same sort of idea at the beginning, social media for TV shows, movies, just so people could watch. And, he's kind of been building it for like 2.5, 3 years. And we're like, I've always kind of been impressed. And I'm like, yo, when are you going to launch this? Like, Chapman's a perfect test market. Like, you might as well just do it. And I called him when I was in like Switzerland last spring. And I'm like, hey, like, we're going to be seniors. Like, if you're going to launch this, like, now's the time to do it. So I don't know, probably like 9-10 months ago, we decided like we're going to like launch it. And we've been working on it since August, really just preparing a plan. And yeah, so it's been a fun adventure for the past like 9-10 months for sure.
Yeah.
That's pretty badass. So you're telling me that you made him sign an NDA right away before telling him? So you've really been plotting this for a while.
I have, honestly. I came with the idea my freshman year, mainly because me and my high school friends, we would just watch movies all the time. We would go to the theaters like, once, twice, 3 times a week. We would watch shows together, things like that. And so, I'm from Chicago, coming all the way to California for school. I didn't really know many people here. And so I wanted a way to kind of stay in touch with those friends from back home and like not just text them, but see what they're watching and what they like. A lot of times I got suggestions from them. And I tried out some of the competitors like Letterboxd, things like that. And I just found that their platforms were confusing and not really exactly what I was looking for. It didn't solve the problem that I had. And so that's kind of where the idea stemmed from, and it kind of just snowballed from there and turned into what it is today. And I thought it was, a cool idea. And I was like, all right, well, if I'm going to do this, like, this is going to be a great learning experience for me, like of, starting a business and that kind of an idea. So I was like, I'm going to treat it as such, let's learn what an NDA is. Let's learn what it means to work with people and, bring people onto a team and things like that. And so I treated it seriously, but yeah, it's been several years in the making, and it's really cool to see it like come to fruition.
Then Zach, how did you come into play in this?
I don't know. It was more just like I was abroad and I pretty much was like, hey, you should launch it. And Brady pretty much just asked me to kind of join in. And I kind of been doing some sort of business stuff like throughout college. And I don't know, we kind of just came to an agreement of kind of what the work split would look like and kind of what our roles would be. And it kind of worked for both of us. And we were just like, you know what, like I have a little bit of time this senior year. Like I'm trying to have fun. My class load's not going to be like crazy. So I'll have a little bit of time to just spend trying to make this app functional. And hopefully we can get like a nice user base on it. And, you know, that was kind of when we decided, you know, I'm not sure if you thought that you were going to work with me when you showed me and gave me the NDA, but, you know, that's maybe more for you to answer.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was so early on, it was hard to know like what it was going to become, you know, and I think like ever since we met like freshman year, I think we just like we bounce ideas off each other well. I think like the things that I'm not super well versed in, he is. And so that's kind of why I wanted to bring him on to the team this past summer, because, you know, if we were going to launch it at Chapman and this business was going to start to take place, there was going to be lots of questions and things that I didn't have the answer to that I knew that he would. And so he's been super helpful in that way. When I don't know the answer or I want to bounce an idea off someone or get feedback on something, he's the guy that I go to. And so it's been super helpful to have that, but also like it's helpful to have someone like keep you accountable. You know, sometimes it's easy to get lazy or to be like, oh, I'll do this later, or, you know, I can push it back a week. But, you know, Zach's been there to be like, no, like we need to do this now. Like we need to have this ready, or, you know, just having him, you know, involved makes me, you know, feel the pressure of, all right, I need to get this done. And so it's been much easier to, you know, keep myself accountable and stay on track to our deadlines.
So have you coded the whole thing yourself?
I have, yeah. Since I built it out freshman year about, what was that, 3 years ago, you know, a lot of the AI tools that we have now did not exist at the time. And so the core app itself, the core functionality, the features was all entirely hand coded by myself. You know, since then, as I've added more features and improved things, those AI tools have come, you know, into place to help make my workflow much more efficient. But yeah, I would say over 95% of the app is, you know, entirely coded myself.
Well, even then, isn't it kind of standard procedure to use AI to help you with coding nowadays?
It definitely is. I mean, I think in most environments, if you're not using it, you're doing something wrong, mainly just because of the efficiency. But you do have to be super careful because it still is wrong a lot. And if you don't review, you know, what changes it's making, you can accidentally, you know, ship something that's, you know, not intended, or even leave security flaws and things like that. So, you know, in some ways it does help you become more efficient, but in some ways, you know, you're spending more time reviewing because you have to make sure that it didn't, you know, do something wrong.
But essentially you're a one-man coding team.
Yeah. Which is super cool because, you know, 5-10 years ago, that would be almost impossible, you know, to put something together on your own. But with the resources and the tools that are out there today, and the fact that I can, you know, build the whole thing on a MacBook Pro and, you know, not need like a crazy setup or anything like to do that, you know, I built it out in my dorm room essentially. Like it's really cool, really cool.
And Zach, were you the person who expanded the 300-person testing group?
I mean, I guess we had like 50 people that was like a testing group, and now we're up to like 300 users. And I would say it's I guess a combination of the both of us and going on campus and just getting people to be aware of the product. So I wouldn't say it was just me. I would definitely say it's a team effort. We also have like a marketing team that I would give some credit to as well, who kind of help us with social media. So I'd say it's a team effort for sure.
So is this all guys in your fraternity?
No, actually, only Zach and I. And then we have 2 social media managers who, one is a freshman, one is a senior, and they're completely different social groups and whatnot. And I think Zach and I being in the same fraternity is more of a coincidence than anything. We kind of wanted to make sure that we're expanding into the Chapman community and making sure that we're able to reach all parts and not be kind of in a bubble that is the Greek life bubble.
Totally. Would you tell me a little bit more about where the app is headed now?
Yeah, for sure. So it's kind of we're kind of at a very interesting point in the business because, like we said, we just won this competition. We've gained a lot of recognition, a lot of PR. We've connected with a lot of investors and whatnot. And so one of the next steps that we're hoping to accomplish is get some funding from an angel investor. And so that's going to help us kind of propel Relate into the next iteration. And so what that kind of entails is collecting a lot of the feedback that we have this far, implementing a lot of the features that have been requested, or a lot of the features that we kind of had in our roadmap for some time. And that would be our goal for the summers, just kind of work those things out, get it ready. And then by the time next semester comes around, we hope to launch at more schools, schools like AU, USC, schools that have a film program like Chapman, where we can kind of target those very like dense markets and expand from there.
So would you explain to me why this is so necessary right now? Because all the streaming services have algorithms already that recommend you shows and content to consume.
Yeah, well, it's a great point. And, a lot of the platforms do have, at the very top or somewhere in the top, like based on what you've just watched or based on this, you might like this, But the truth is a lot of those algorithms are pretty bad. Sometimes they only take into account what you just most recently watched. They don't really actually factor in whether or not you liked it. They just know that you watched it, right? Like there's no really way to like review that movie and explain why you liked it or why you didn't like it. And so they're not really able to give a good suggestion based off of just the data that they have. And this isn't just an assumption, but rather research has shown that users spend, upwards of 10 minutes on Netflix every time they open the app, just browsing the catalog, looking for something to watch.
I know I have.
Exactly. And, sometimes there's data that shows that people don't watch anything at all because they've wasted all their time looking and they just get fatigued and they just shut it off because they give up. And so, that was one of the core ideas or one of the core things we're trying to fix is to provide a platform for people to find what to watch next, not because of what Netflix says, but because people they trust recommend them things, and you can build a watch list from there. And, the next time you want to watch something, you just pull up the Relate and you can say, oh, okay, this person really liked this. I think I'll like that as well. I'm going to go watch it. And it'll tell you exactly where to watch it as well.
Do you have an algorithm for recommending directly from the app, or are you only taking into account what your friends are recommending you?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of both. Obviously, you have your feed with all of your friends' reviews and recommendations, but then we also have a basic algorithm right now that kind of takes in your reviews and suggests things for you. But in the future, one of the things that we're going to be working on is a more in-depth algorithm that collects, that takes all of these different data points based off of what your friend's watching, what you're watching, and actually analyzes each individual review and figures out whether or not you liked it, the movie or the show. And if so, try to figure out why you liked it based off of the review that you've provided. And then, if you really think about it with every movie or show, there's so many different data points. I mean, there's the cast, there's the crew, there's the director, there's where it was filmed, when it was filmed, what genre is it? Is it PG? Is it R? Is it PG-13? There's so many different attributes for every single film, every single TV show. And if you take all these things together and you cross-reference it, you can get super, super accurate reviews or recommendations. And so we're working towards an algorithm that will be able to take in all these things and give you, really spot-on recommendations.
So would you say the friends thing is just the hook right now? Are you hoping to develop an algorithm that knows you even better than your friends long-term?
I think it's definitely possible that that'll happen. I think getting reviews from your friends and the people you trust is the core product itself. But this algorithm will be able to take in all that information and just spit out recommendations for you, either based off of, what they've recommended already or new things that haven't been recommended to you yet, but recommendations that are still relevant, if that kind of makes sense. So I think it's a combination of both. I think some people really like to look through it and scroll through their feed and read everything. And some people just want to get an answer quick. And so to kind of have both angles, I think is important to start at least.
Now I have to ask you this question. Why is it different than Letterboxd?
Yeah, well, to start, Letterboxd doesn't have TV shows, right? And so Relate has both movies and TV shows. And so you can rate a TV show as a whole or every single individual episode. So if you really wanted to go and rate every single episode of Breaking Bad, you can do that. We also rate on a scale of 0 to 10 with decimal values in between. So you can be like 9.8, 9.9, 4.2, whatever you want, right? So you can get super specific with your rating. It's not just, stars, where I believe you can only do like up to quarters of a star or whatever. So this, you can get very specific. That's one of the things that a lot of our users have liked. And the other main thing is that Relate is a social media platform. So everything that from the design to the way it's engineered, everything is meant to feel like a social media platform like Instagram, Twitter, things like that. Whereas a lot of the people that we've spoke to, and just based off of our feedback, Letterboxd is more of a personal logging platform. Not a lot of people are using it to see what others are watching, but more of keep track of what they're watching or what they want to watch. And Relate is formed with social first. It's very easy to use. It's intuitive. Anyone can use it no matter the age, all the way up to adults and things like that. So I think that's kind of more of the niche that we're going for.
And I think that goes kind of hand in hand with what we're saying with like friends. And it even goes back to like what you were saying about like different algorithms and stuff. And, Letterboxd is definitely good for like personal stuff. And, if they end up adding TV shows at some point and they want to have really good algorithms and people really like that for themselves, they can personally log it and find movies, where I think we're more trying to have like a social aspect where we really saw, especially within Dodge, a lot of conversations stem around entertainment, movies, TV shows, and we just felt like there could be a better platform for that online.
So pitching it as a social media platform, are you telling me there are DMs in it?
Not yet, but we do have a feature plan that will kind of be, how do I say it, similar, I guess, for lack of a better term.
What we'll say is like, right now the app is like the simplest it will be. We thought that it was good enough to like send into like a test market and see how users interact with it. But from here, it'll only get more nuanced.
But you're telling me one day someone's going to slide into someone's Relate DMs?
You could definitely use that as some Riz probably if that's what you're going for.
I think it'll be a version of DMs. I don't think it'll be strictly texting or, like videos, pictures. There isn't really necessarily a need for that, but I think there is definitely a plan to have some sort of feature where you're exchanging recommendations directly with another user. And so it'll be similar to a DM, but slightly different. And I think what Zach said about it being the simplest form right now is very true. I mean, we have a whole roadmap of things we want to add on in the coming months. And so I'm particularly super excited to dive into that. But we wanted to launch at Chapman with its simplest form to kind of get feedback and test it out and see how people react to it. And we feel as though the feedback has been great. We won the Panther Cage match, and that was a great sign. And so now we're kind of preparing for the next steps of the business.
So what are those next steps for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think going back to what we said earlier, I think just looking for funding. We need some funding to kind of, put marketing to more of like the product design, UI, UX, social media, advertising, things like that are a lot of the fundamentals that we need for this next iteration and to propel us forward. And so we're kind of at this point where we're starting to figure that out. What does that look like? How can we achieve that and use that to kind of plan out our summer and the next steps of development and things like that.
So are you guys in this for the long haul?
I mean, I think it's tough. Like Brady does have a full-time offer that he's taking as of today. In the future, I mean, I would say that we're definitely in it for the long haul, but it's an application, and kind of what we've seen with a bunch of apps is like, they're not set in stone, and you could have a great product and it might not work. So we don't want to put all of our eggs in one basket. And also like financially, like it would be nice to have some money coming in, but not to say if that were to, explode and go viral, like, that would definitely be a potential option that I think we would look at.
So is this more of an acquiring play? Would you one day want Letterboxd to buy you guys out?
I mean, I think that's like so far down the road. It's more like, how can we get people to, use our app, download it and keep it and come back, weekly or daily or like even monthly. Like a pretty common metric that like Appsful uses like monthly active users. And I think that's our, like, I guess a more goal that we're more aiming for is just increasing our MAU.
And how many monthly users do you have right now?
Well, we've only been active for about a month now. And so
every user is still monthly.
Every user, within it must have been on the app within the past month. So we're at like that 300-ish mark right now. And that's all from an initial marketing push that we did right at launch. And since then, we posted on social media, but we haven't really done any serious campaigns. And so we're starting to prepare for our next one. But to go back to the previous question, like Zach said, I do have a full-time job post-graduation. And so Relate is something that I hope to, continue working on in my free time and on the side. Long term, if it becomes to the point where it takes off and I don't have the time, then, maybe I would try to figure out what that looks like so I could give it more of my attention. But I think it's it started as a project, started as an idea that I was passionate about, and it still feels like that to me. And so I want to keep working on it for as long as I can. And I think we have a very in-depth roadmap of things we want to work on. And so that's something that I'm particularly excited about.
And what's your full-time offer right now?
I'll be doing software engineering in New York for a startup. Yeah. Yeah.
So for angel investors, isn't that kind of doesn't it make it difficult for angel investors to potentially put money in if they see that you have another job and this is kind of something on the back burner?
I think that's a good question. And I haven't necessarily received that feedback from the people that I've spoken to thus far. I think the angel investment wouldn't be like a ridiculous amount. It's not like we're asking for $1 million or something like that. And they're also, we would show them what we're using the money on, and the money is not to pay me. It's not to pay my salary, right? And so I think, if that was the case, then they would probably be frustrated because they're like, well, we're essentially paying you, but you have a full-time job already. But, that's not where the investment would be going. It would be going towards, campus expansions through social media, paid advertising, paid user acquisition, a product designer. And so the money, would be going to these things regardless of, my employment status. But I do think that's a good question. But it's not something that has been raised this far as a concern.
And how much money are you looking to raise from an angel investor?
I mean, what we pitched at Panther Cage Match was $50,000, and we kind of gave them like an in-depth viewpoint of kind of what all the money would be going to in specific. I think more of the reason why we don't have a VC or an angel investor at the moment is, specifically with Panther Cage Match, I think they did a really good job, and they had a lot of different industries come in for people to invest. But we're kind of in a niche space, so to find a angel investor, they're really focused on a specific industry, and it might be a little bit harder to find someone like the tech entertainment because we're kind of in the mix of both of those industries. And kind of the feedback we got from at least one tech VC at Panther Cage Match was that we're not really in his space, so we would have to find someone with that niche.
Yeah.
If I had to guess, and tell me if I'm wrong, the part of the app that would sell for the most would be this algorithm, if you're able to perfect it, that essentially a streaming service would buy out. Is that the main focus, to perfect this algorithm, or is it really just to get more users?
I think it's a combination of both. I mean, I think we want to increase the user base, definitely. I mean, I think that's the primary focus. I do think that this algorithm, this feature, would bring in a lot of users, right? And I think that's something that's extremely valuable. But I think at its core, I think the platform itself, the interaction, the reviews, I think that's what's valuable, the information, right? And I think we have a plan to, long term, to be able to work with like film studios and provide them those insights and that feedback on why a user liked their films or what they liked, what they didn't like. And I think that information will be super valuable to them, or even the streaming service, and so forth. And we'll also be able to provide them with an outlet to campaign within Relate. So if they want to share a trailer that just launched, or they've casted X, Y, and Z for their upcoming film, they'll have a space to post that on Relate and share that with their followers and people who pay attention to their studio and whatnot. And so I think it's a culmination of things, but I think the main factor is the user base.
And it's not really possible to build like a crazy algorithm and have it be worth anything unless we have users. So I think it just goes back to kind of what we've been saying, like user acquisition is really what we're focused on. That's really how we're going to build and expand the business. There's no reason to blow things out of proportion at this point when we're like just starting.
Totally. And what has this app done for you guys' friendship?
I mean, honestly, I feel like it's been great because we'll be hanging out and it'll be like, okay, like, always have, something that we are working on together. A lot of dinners that we'll just have like at the house. I think we both like to cook, so that's obviously nice. And, today we had like our once a week meeting for like an hour with social media managers. So it's kind of just something throughout the day that we can throw on our calendars, which I think has been nice, but not to say that we wouldn't like hang out otherwise. It's just like something built in at this point.
Yeah, I think for me as well, like this is something that I'm super passionate about, something that I love working on. And so to get that, share that with another person and not just like share those thoughts with myself, but be able to be excited about it with another person and have someone to talk to about these kinds of things and not just bore someone random, like crazy. It's kind of fun to be able to like talk through those things and like share that excitement and that passion with someone else. And so that's been a lot of fun. And I think it's also been like an amazing like learning experience for both of us. And like we've networked with so many people, met so many awesome people, and learned a lot throughout the process that I think will be super applicable to future endeavors.
On the presentation, it says you guys have a premium or a freemium business plan. Could you tell me what the premium version of this would be?
Yeah, so we can provide you with a separate graphic that wasn't on the pitch deck that has an exact breakdown of the features. But like one of the things that we'll have on that premium model is this algorithm that we've been talking so much about. The ability to get suggestions on demand like that to such a high level of accuracy is something that will be on the premium plan. There'll probably be like a light version or a basic version of that algorithm accessible to all users. But to really get those super accurate high level suggestions, that'll be part of the paid plan. We'll also be releasing a feature in the next couple of months that'll allow you to sync or connect your streaming services to Relate. So for example, you could link your Netflix profile, and then if you go watch something on Netflix, it'll pop up on Relate as that you just watched it, right? So like if you go and watch The Pitt on HBO Max, Relate will send you a notification, hey, we just saw you watch The Pitt episode 1, you know, what did you think of it? You click on it, opens you right up, and then you submit your review, you're done. You know, so making it easier, making it everything syncs to one place. That's another thing that'll be part of the premium subscription. More customization, customize your profile, you know, background, switch photos out, things like that, and so much more. We don't want the premium plan to get in the way of those free users. We still want the core product to be accessible to everyone. But for those more cinephiles or users who want to get a more in-depth, advanced experience, we'll have that premium model or that premium plan available to those users.
Do you think people really would be open to paying for a premium subscription? I feel like people are already complaining that their streaming services are too much. And on top of that, they're going to pay for an app that would help them find more things to watch.
Yeah, it's a good question. And I do think a good percentage of our users will be interested in something like that. At the end of the day, like I think time is money, right? And like we said earlier, I mean, users are spending so much time looking for something to watch, and so much time is wasted. And I think once they see the power behind some of these features, especially this algorithm, I mean, it's going to save them so much time. And I think that the success, you know, of them watching one of the recommendations and really liking it, you know, will really pay for that subscription. It's not going to be anything crazy like $10-$20 a month. I think we have quoted around $4.99 is probably going to be a monthly rate. And I think we'll probably, when we launch, have some sort of a trial as well, so users can kind of get a taste of it. But, you know, I don't think it'll be something that every user will need, but I do think there'll be a lot of users out there who will be interested in something like this.
For sure. Best case scenario, where is this app in 5 years?
It's a good question. I think in 5 years from now, I mean, I haven't even thought that far, but I'd love to see like the user base, you know, maybe in the hundreds of thousands 5 years from now. I think that's a tangible goal. I mean, I don't know if that's crazy. I haven't really thought too much about it, but I mean, for me, it's really just growing the platform, growing the community, the user base. And I think we know how to get there. It's just a matter of, you know, one step at a time and having everything align for us to get to that point. But I think for me, that's something that I'd love to see.
Yeah. And I would say that hundreds of thousands is definitely not crazy. I mean, if you look at Letterboxd, they have like, you know, over 20 million users, whether they're active or not, like, you know, who's to say? But clearly there's a market for this. And I mean, it's kind of funny. I reached out to some people that I met abroad when we launched the app, and I sent them all like a code to just like download it through the App Store. And anyone that was like out of the country is like, I can't download it. So I think hopefully we would also be at least in like Canada and Europe. And I mean, it would be great to be worldwide as well at that point. But yeah, I mean, 5 years out, we just launched a month ago. It's hard to say really what will happen. Obviously there's like a vision, but I think it's more just focusing on one step at a time. And you know, if you have the vision in mind, I think the steps will just come to you as you progress.
Well, you guys have me sold. Thank you for coming on.
Of course. Thanks for having us. I appreciate it.
Thanks, David.